I will be happy to introduce our wonderful speaker, Dennis Brooke. Now, Pathways is the Toastmasters program designed to help you achieve personal goals, but it can be a bit confusing. Our speaker today spent most of his career in information technology, bringing order out of chaos and implementing user-friendly systems for companies like Starbucks, Liquor Cannabis Board, and Pepperdine University. Today, he will speak on making sense out of pathways. Help me welcome Dennis Brooks.
Thanks, and I'm going to start sharing my screen here. And everyone should see a screen that says making sense out of pathways, right? Okay, I want to share a story first about a tool that I tried to use to accomplish a goal. And Pathways is the tool that Toastmasters developed to help us accomplish our speaking and leadership goals, individual goals. Now, back when I was in high school, I took a typing class. And now that kind of dates me because they probably don't teach typing anymore. But I took a typing class because the ratio of boys to girls was like 1 to 15. And I thought it'd be a fantastic way to meet girls. Well, I learned to type, but it failed like a lot of my other efforts to meet girls. But today, what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk to you about Pathways and how to use it to make sure that you really do achieve your goals. Now, in the introduction, it talked about pathways can be a little bit confusing, and frankly, it can be very discombobulating. But like we said in the intro, I've spent most of my careers doing things in IT to make things easier, and everything from Liquor Cannabis Board to Pepperdine University. And I worked from Sydney to Sault Ste. Marie working on projects like this. So what the goal today is to figure out how to make pathways work for you. Now, Toastmasters, we all came here for a specific reason. Maybe your boss told you should, or you might have to move on, or maybe your boss said you should join and you might get a promotion. You might have a personal life goal. It might be getting promoted. I know a person who was joining Toastmasters because they had a nonprofit based in Burma that they were working with. Some people want to start a business. They need more confidence. Or you might want more confidence in personal communications. Now, I have a volunteer today who's going to help me with this, and that is Elena?
Yes.
All right, great. So how long have you been in Toastmasters?
I started watching last fall, and then I joined in February and March, and I haven't renewed this time because I'm in the process of creating a business.
Oh, good.
And so funny you should say that. As I have been observing Toastmasters, I don't feel that I have direction in it. So I have not chosen a pathway.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how this is going to help me. So this is going to be very helpful for me today.
All right, perfect. So you would say a life goal that you have is to start a business.
Yes.
Okay, great. So let's run with that. And what we're going to do is we're going to use you as a case study and show how picking a specific pathway will help you with that.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, so Pathways has 5 core competencies that go across the different paths. And I'm going to show you a chart in a little bit, but the 5 core competencies are public speaking, interpersonal communication, strategic leadership, which may apply more to you, management, and confidence. And there's 11 different pathways that you can pick from, and they range from dynamic leadership to engaging humor. And the whole idea is instead of having a one-size-fits-all program, which Toastmasters used to have, is you can pick something that works for you, and within that, you can make adaptations to make it work for you even better. All right. One of the other things I want to mention is you don't really have to take a lot of notes today because I'm going to share with you a cheat sheet that has links to all the things that we're talking about to help you go through and make sense of pathways. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to look at a summary from District 4. And like I said, these links are in the cheat sheets that I have, that I'll pass out. District 4 has done a really good job of encapsulating what Pathways is. And I find these tools are really helpful. I find them more helpful than some of the stuff that Toastmasters has. And you see here, it does talk about, here's the 5 core competencies ranging from public speaking to confidence. And then you look at the different paths, and it shows you what focus, what core competencies are covered. So for example, here in dynamic leadership, it covers public speaking, interpersonal communications, strategic leadership, but not necessarily management. And the other thing is confidence is a part of every one of these because it's a matter of learning by doing and gaining more confidence. So if you want a really good overview of what each of the pathways is, you can look it up here, gives you the overview. And then if you scroll down, it goes into more depth. So this is one good tool for figuring out what path you want to look at. Now, they also have a tool that I really like that I'm going to focus on today, and it's more of an interactive type tool. So Elena, you were talking about, what we're going to do is we're going to pick one today, but what I would encourage you to do is look at these later. As a business owner, if you look just at the titles, dynamic leadership, leadership development, motivational strategies, what kind of strikes you as might be the right path for you?
Possibly the effective coaching.
Effective coaching, okay, to be a good manager and leader. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and use that as the example today, but I would encourage you to go through and look at them because there might be one that's a better fit. But right now, what we're going to do is we're going to pick the effective coaching. Now, the thing I like about this is this lets me go back and forth into the different details that are on each path or each segment of the path here. And effective coaching and all the paths are broken up into 5 different levels. Now, there's some projects that are common to every single path. And I'm going to show you that in a little handout chart that you can have later. So for example, in level 1, every path has an icebreaker. There's also a value, and this describes what the icebreaker is. There's also evaluation and feedback. This talks about evaluation and feedback and researching and presenting. Now, like I said, some of these are common to every single path and some will be different. If I go to level 2, the 3 tasks here are understanding your leadership style, understanding your communication style, and introduction to Toastmasters mentoring. Now, when I get into level 3, this is where it's kind of a little bit different. You have a task or a project reaching consensus, but then you get into electives. And so you could pick 2 different electives. So for example, yours, you might, if you're thinking about having a business, you might do presentation software because maybe you're trying to pitch your business, or you might try connect with your audience. But you get a chance to go through and see what each one of these are and pick the one that works for you. Okay. There's also a Toastmasters online survey that you can take. And I'm going to show that a little bit later when we see how you actually sign up for paths. But so basically, a couple of different options for understanding your pathways options are the summary from District 4, the interactive page that we just looked at, and then the Toastmasters online survey. Okay, this is a chart that Kyle Hall from District 32 created, and I've improved upon it. And now what we're going to do is we're going to use Elena as our case study, and we are going to fill out this chart. And again, you'll be able to download this yourself. So how do you spell your name?
ALAINA.
Okay. All right. And which path did we pick?
The coaching.
Okay, coaching.
The effective coaching, I think it's.
Yes, effective coaching. Yes. Good thing you have a better memory than I do. Okay. Effective coaching. So we're going to go through a little bit of this so I can show you how this is filled out. But you remember when we first looked at this, if you go to level 1, there's an icebreaker, there's required, there's an evaluation feedback, and then there's research and presenting. These are pre-filled because this is true of every single path. They're all three going to have these options or these projects. So these are your different phases or levels, level 1 through 5. And then these rows, individual rows, are your different projects. So again, we'll look at, if you look at level 1, you're going to do an icebreaker. Here's the description of it. You're going to do evaluation feedback, description of that, and researching and presenting. So if I go back to the chart here, these are pre-filled in because you have one of these. All right. Now, I'm not going to put in dates right now, but what we found in my club that helps is we want to put a target date in at least the next couple of levels. And ideally, we tell everyone, try to do at least one project each 6 to 8 weeks. And we think that's pretty reasonable for most people. So if you're doing one of these projects every 6 to 8 weeks, you can figure out what your target date would be for that. Okay. Does that make sense so far?
Yes.
Okay, great. Now we're going to go into level 2. So this will be where it'll be a little bit different. So level 2, this is blank because it is different for each project. See if I can drag this without messing up my screen. Okay, so you see the first project is called Understanding Your Leadership Style. So I'm going to fill this out, understanding we have a spell master here who can correct my spelling when I'm making mistakes. So you would put in understanding your leadership style, and this is the description of what it is. So the next box would obviously be understanding your communication style. And then you see the last one is introduction to Toastmasters mentoring, because that's the same for everyone. Okay, I'm not going to fill all these out. I just want to give you an idea about how it works so you can walk through it on your own. But we are going to look at level 3, because level 3, the first thing is reaching consensus. So that's your required project for level 3. And that's not filled in because that's going to be different for different projects. And then you get into the fun. You get to go in and pick 2 electives. So just glancing at these, Elena, what electives look interesting to you?
Connect with your audience.
Connect with your audience. That's a great one.
Effective body language.
Connect with your audience. And effective body language. Great. And the good thing is you could fill this in, and I suggest filling it in beforehand, because what'll happen is as you're going through your life, you might think of, this would be a good project for effective body language, or this would be a good project for reaching consensus. So you just kind of want to keep those things in mind. But once you reach this level, you may say, oh, I really want to inspire my audience because I think that'll help me be a better manager. So that's how you fill out this chart. And again, there'll be required projects for every level. In the level 1, they're all required projects, but then you get into different electives. Now, here's the other thing that you get into is level 4, for some reason, they have 1 required project and they have 1 elective. So it's kind of like bingo. You get a free space and you only have to do 2 projects. And again, what I would suggest is fill this out and then say, if I do a speech or a project every 6 to 8 weeks, what would be my target date for this phase? And like I said, it's really helped our club be able to move ahead. Does this chart make sense to everyone? Are there any?
Yes.
Okay. No questions? Okay. And by the way, this is my wife on the right hiking across Spain. I just like to show her off. So we hiked the Camino de Santiago about 5 years ago. And so that's her about the middle of it. All right. Now what we're going to do is I'm going to show you how this works within the Toastmasters website. So when you paid your membership, you've signed up for Toastmasters, you're going to go ahead and you're going to go log into toastmasters.org. And I've already done this because I'm going to be honest, toastmasters.org website is kind of slow. So what you're going to do is you're going to log in, and then you're going to go here and you're going to go to pathways. You're going to click pathways. You're going to just click choose a path. Oh, see what I was saying about slow? And then you're going to go continue to path selection. The other thing is, if you're a club officer, you can pick a path for someone else, but we're going to assume that Elena's doing this on her own. So you can pick your language. It defaults to English. And you have a couple of different options. One is you can do digital resources, which is what I recommend. Or if you're old school, you can go ahead and do printed materials. The negative about printed materials is A, it costs 25 bucks more, and B, there are more limited paths. Not every path is available in printed materials. So let's assume you say select digital resources. Now you have two options for how to pick your learning path. One of them is you just look at the options, and the stuff that I showed you guys from District 4, that is actually very similar to this. So if you've already picked what path you want, then you can go ahead and use this to pick your path. Go ahead and select it. The other thing is you can do an online assessment. I did the online assessment. I thought it was okay, but I actually might have picked something different, but you could try both ways. But if you pick the online assessment, you'll go through a series of questions that will ask you about your personal goals. And then at the end, it will give you one or more options, and you can say, yeah, I like that. I think that helped me. Or you can say, nah, I really don't want that. I want to pick a different path. Okay. Let's assume that you know which path you want. You can click on this view path options. And see, Elena had picked effective coaching. If she had a question about these, she can go in and say, well, I really want to know more about leadership development. And it'll show you all the projects in that. So it's kind of like the District 4 chart, but it's not put in a, how would you call it, in a dashboard. So once Elena says, I want effective coaching, she's going to click this button here, and then she's going to go ahead and follow the menu. I'm not going to do that, because the system will be confused, because this is a live system, and it's going to think that I'm actually trying to pick that path. But that's pretty much how easy it is to do. You go to toastmasters.org, select pathways, choose the path, go to the path selection. You can do the survey if you want, or you can just pick one, and then you place the order. Now, the nice thing is your first pathway is included with membership, and they're $20 after that. All right, so in conclusion, there is a reference guide, and I'll put this URL in the chat for you guys, and feel free to distribute it to anyone you want. Whoops, we're not ready for you yet, Benny. I'll put this URL in the chat, and as you walk through this, if you or one of your club officers ask questions, feel free to go ahead and send me a note, because what I'm trying to do is, like I say, make pathways more accessible for everyone, not just in my club, but in District 32 and in Toastmasters, because it can be a very, very good program, but it's also confusing and challenging. And I've seen more than one person just give up on it. And that's why we started doing this in my club, and we're finding that people are getting a lot more out of it. So I'm going to copy that URL and post it in a minute. But first, excuse me, do we have questions? What questions do we have?
I have some questions. Am I on?
You are not. You're not on mute now.
I can't thank you enough, Dennis, for this presentation. I think I first heard about pathways like a couple of years ago, and this has been so incredibly helpful. So I guess a couple quick questions. The old Toastmaster model, we had our wonderful binders or little paper.
Yeah.
And each project had an evaluation form based, on that project. And so my question is, where are those evaluation sheets?
Yes, so that's a good question, and it's a little bit more confusing because unlike the books, everything isn't all together. Once you pick your path, then what you do is you manage your experience through pathways through a software called Basecamp, and that is also how would you call it, a software that can make you feel discombobulated. So I created a presentation about that, and I'd be glad to come back and do that with you. But basically what you do is you go into Basecamp after you picked your path, and there are videos and checklists and all that help you walk through how you do your path. And one thing that helps is, do you guys use the free Toast software? You do? Okay. Yeah, and so there's actually two different free softwares. I've only used the free Toast, but I've talked to people who are in clubs that one club uses one club uses the other, and they find the free Toast is easier to use, especially for non-technical people. If you're doing a speech and you use free Toast, you can go into free Toast and say, okay, I'm giving a speech out of this program, and it is this project. And you select that in free Toast, and the evaluation form will actually pop up. So whoever's doing your evaluation form will see that. The other way you find it is you can find it in Basecamp when you're walking through Basecamp. Okay, good question. And I originally was going to create a how to make sense out of pathways in Basecamp and do 1.5 hour presentation. I can't do that. It's just too complex.
No, I think the way you did it is wonderful, Dennis. And I'd love to have you back just for Basecamp, but that's great. The other question I have is, this is not a knock against Toastmaster. I'm probably one of the biggest fans of Toastmasters, but I guess I'm curious because it sounds like the District 4 has created a lot of resources and things like that and worksheets. And I guess I'm wondering that when this was created, I would have thought that it would be coming from, the international headquarters. And again, I'm not trying to be negative, but I'm just trying to figure out, it sounds like the districts are really creating those resource aids that may not be coming from the headquarters itself, or.
Yeah, no, I hear what you're saying, and I've been in Toastmasters since 1992. I joined it back in New Jersey. I'm from the Pacific Northwest, but I was living in New Jersey for 3 years after being in the Air Force, and I'm a big fan of it too. But I don't think they did a great job of rolling it out. I think that what happens a lot of times, and I've seen this as a professional IT project manager, is you understand everything in detail and you kind of assume that the people who are not in your head understand it as well. And I think they really need to kind of like walk people through it, and they threw a lot of information at them. So they're kind of drowning people in details. And I think District 4 and some of the other groups are reacting to that and figuring out ways to do that. And hopefully Toastmasters International will adopt some of those things, because I think it's a good program. It is challenging. And like I said, hopefully today helped, and some of the other tools that the others have will help too. Okay. Other questions? Other questions?
Hey, Dennis, I was, if it's okay, your explanation was awesome today. I'm in Pathways. I've done a couple of tasks already, but I've not really got the picture of it inside my head. But today, when you get the presentation, if I could offer this that just popped in my head, it's kind of like if you went to a university, is what I'm envisioning here. And the university said, here's our core competencies. We're a teaching university or whatever. Right. And then within our university, we have colleges. We have the School of Medicine. We have the School of Law. And that kind of is like our pathway. Right. If we want to become a lawyer, we go to the School of Law. Well, if we want to work on presentation mastery, we go to this path of presentation mastery. And then within that, just like if I was at a college, I'd be a freshman, sophomore or junior or senior, and that kind of corresponds to the levels within our path. Is that make any sense? Like, yeah,
yeah.
Today I'm a sophomore, and here's the things that I have these courses of study as a sophomore, and so once I finish those, then I can go become to my junior year, and I'm going to have more electives during my junior year to really hone in on my part of medicine that I want to focus on, kind of thing, or something like that.
So Colonel, that's a great analogy, and I will steal that. So in fact, if you look at it, you remember the very first level, all the tasks were picked for you, right? You have to do, everyone does an icebreaker. It doesn't matter which path you're in. You know, everyone does certain things in that first level. Well, in some respects, that's kind of that way in college. You know, usually you have to have some kind of, sociology or English. So there are basic classes that you have to have. So yeah, that's a great analogy.
Yeah, I just remember the first time they started talking about pathways, now quite a few years ago, but I wasn't putting all these terms were just new terms, and it didn't make sense until today, until you ran it through again. And now I said, oh wait, this is kind of the way it works.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I borrowed some stuff from Kyle Hall, who he put together a presentation that I'm going to refer you guys to, and then the worksheet. And it's just, like I said, from my experience working in IT, is trying to figure out, okay, how do you make this easier for everyone? So I had to dig into it, and it's been useful for our club and some of the other people I've worked with. I'm getting a note from Julia that says, send us the Pathways worksheet as an attachment. The URL is asking me to get access. So I will get you a copy of that, and then I will fix that later. Other questions or suggestions like Phil had?
This is totally off topic. And while I can appreciate a lot of the ways that they're structuring this, having those core requirements, does that change as you go through? Like if you've been in Pathways for a while, do they require you still to do an icebreaker every single time you choose a path?
Yeah, it doesn't change. In fact, I know a couple of people are going through, I know a couple of people are doing Pathways, and yeah, those things don't change. Now, the other thing is that, I mean, things like an icebreaker are pretty much the same for every project, but you can get into a required project, and I'm going to bring this up. So like researching and presenting might be different for coaching than it is for dynamic leadership. So it may be a required project, but it may have a little bit different spin. But yes, the mastering the fundamentals is going to be the same for each project, but there could be a little bit of a different spin to it.
Great, thank you for that. It's kind of like, at least when I'm teaching dance, like I hammer on people about the fundamentals all the time. And I usually say to become an expert dancer, you need to get really solid at your basic. And that always throws people off because they think it's all about moves and being fancy, but that's a really wonderful reminder that it's always about the basics.
Right, and sometimes you'll pick up, I mean, you know, ideally, or you would expect that you hadn't done an icebreaker recently. So it's also an icebreaker is just a good way to introduce people to yourself again. Okay. Other questions or suggestions? Okay. Well,
another quick one, but I was waiting to see if anyone else had a real quick one. You know, if I want to improve my storytelling ability, what pathway would I choose? Because storytelling is integrated into a path, but if that's really what I want to focus on, and I could do this offline, Dennis, I don't want to, but I guess I'm just trying to figure out where I would even go.
Yeah, no, that's actually, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen again, and I'm going to make you guys an offer. So first of all, let's see. Different pathways. There is one about, see, I'm looking at, well, I thought there was one about storytelling specifically. There is not, but I know that there is storytelling in a number of different paths. So yeah, you could look in and say, all right, I want to focus on storytelling. Is there, is it in my electives? So I know that there is a storytelling. Yeah, connect with storytelling. So you could look through and say, which one is really going to help me with storytelling? So you could try that. The other thing is, so I'm actually a novelist and a storyteller. I'll send you guys a link to a free storytelling book. It's an online ebook that I usually sell for like $1, but I'll send you guys a link to the free one, and you're welcome to take a look at that. And I do a presentation on that too, and it talks about how you become a better storyteller. It's got a number of different ways to become a better storyteller along with exercises.
Awesome. Thank you.
Okay.
That is awesome. Thanks, Dennis.
Okay.
Hey, another thing for Jan or Elena, whoever, our district also has advanced clubs. One of which is storytelling, focus on storytelling and humor. It's called, I'm a member of that club as well. It's called, what's it called?
Something unmemorable.
Laugh Lab Story Masters. Laugh Lab Story Masters. Sorry, I had a brain cramp. And then and that meets once a month on the first Thursday of the month, second Thursday of the month. And then we have in District C, we have an advanced club that is focusing on entrepreneurs, people that want to get into professional speaking, that are business owners, and that club has got a new name. It's called Beyond Excellence, BE, be all you can be. So those are advanced clubs. There's usually a prerequisite, but there's a good opportunity for anyone to join and work on a specific area of their Toastmasters that goes beyond the basics of of Jefferson speakers, I guess.
Great. Right. And I see my time is up according to Ann's cues. So thanks again for inviting me. I'm glad this seems to be useful, and I will send a follow-up information.